Hello, and welcome back to JC's Writing Advice. I'm JC Bybee, indie author and part time YouTuber. I have 8 books out across 3 different series, and books 9 and 10. I just got the proof copies for The Phantom Thief and Technomancer. Both of these books will be available for purchase on May 15th. You can find me on May 15th, 16th, and 17th at Expo Idaho in Boise at Gem State Comic Con. And you can get signed copies of these and all the other books that I have. So we've been talking a lot about sort of the overarching topics of writing. I'm going to hone in a little bit on one topic today. So we're going to go into something. I've given a presentation on this before, and I've thought a lot about it recently. And that is heroes and villains, or protagonists and antagonists, and how do you make those characters interesting? So the characters I'm going to use are from my Hero Unit series. So pop over here to Hero Unit. I want to zoom in on this character here. This is Ace. So let me tell you a little bit about Ace. Ace is a Superman analog, sort of. She doesn't have all of the same powers as Superman, but she has a lot of them. So people that read the Hero Unit series will pick up on that, on her similarities to that particular superhero, partially because Superman is one that I particularly like. I like Superman as a character. I like him as a hero. Not everybody can do that character justice, though, I will say. Now, Ace, one of the things that I strive to do with her as a character is I don't lean into her weaknesses. It almost is a cliche that if you watch a Superman movie, read a Superman comic, that kryptonite's going to show up at some point. Whether it's the standard poisonous green kryptonite that kills him, or all of the weird varieties that they've come up with over the years that have various effects on poor Kal-El and his powers. You can see here, I actually have this mislabeled. Ace's weakness should actually be worked obsidian. Obsidian that has been taken from its raw form and turned into specifically a tool or weapon. So she has a weakness. Nobody knows it, not really. And so if I have a character that's as powerful as Superman, but nobody knows what her weakness is, how do I constrain her? Well, Ace is very much a law-abiding citizen. She's a soldier. She was raised in a family that viewed law and order as necessary parts of society, necessary parts of civilization, and her parents taught her about the necessity of following the law and the necessity of law, because her parents lived through what's known as the Exceptionals War. For those of you who have read the series or possibly listened to a couple of my other videos, the Exceptionals War was quite literally a global conflict that killed billions of people, changed geography, changed population centers, changed attitudes about a lot of things, changed society as a whole. And her parents, Ace's parents, lived through that, fought in that, and came out the other side with a different view on society, on laws, on the responsibilities of people with power and how they should use their power. And when they discovered that their daughter, their firstborn child, was the most powerful exceptional to have ever been conceived, they realized that they had a responsibility to teach her to obey and respect the law. And as a result, when Ace graduates high school, she joins the military, trying to find a place where her powers didn't mark her as different. Because again, she is exponentially more powerful than any other exceptional in the world. And we'll get into some spoilers, but not really. Yes and no. For anybody that's interested in reading Hero Unit, you might want to skip this video until you've read at least volume 1. But in Hero Unit, Ace has a twin sister, and her twin sister is named Angela. And Angela is the mental class equivalent of Ace. She's incredibly powerful, more so than any other fourth. But Angela has a problematic and difficult quirk to deal with. So, for those of you who might be My Hero Academia fans, quirks are different. In that awesome manga series, a quirk is your powers. In Hero Unit, and I started Hero Unit before I ever heard of My Hero Academia, so I get a pass. But quirks in my world are the often physical, sometimes metaphysical manifestations of the side effects of powers, I guess would be the best way of saying it. So, for example, Ace has the Fountain of Youth quirk. Ace will never look older than 18, ever. I kind of did that as a joke on her, that she's this super powerful character that looks like she's 18. So she has to work a little bit harder to get people that don't know her to believe her at first. Angela's quirk, on the other hand, is called Used. And what used means is you have no control on your powers. None. They do whatever they want. It's almost like they have a mind and a will of their own, and they do whatever they want. And with Angela being as powerful as she was, she had to be isolated at a very young age because of the nature of her powers. And so she was put behind protective barriers and protective shielding, and that's sort of one of the arcs of the first Hero Unit book, is Ace realizing that she can do something to help Angela. So that's my first protagonist, Ace. Ace is incredibly powerful, capable of doing almost whatever she wants, but because she believes in law and order and was taught to live by the rules of society, she is constrained in her actions by the laws that exist. And as a member of the EED, a hero, she is responsible for enforcing those laws, not just living them, but enforcing them. So to her, the idea of abusing her powers for her own good not something she thinks of. And you can get into philosophical debates about the nature of power and how it changes people, but to Ace, the power has always been there. So yeah, she probably had instances when she was a kid where she used her powers poorly, but name a kid that wouldn't. Her parents, though, did a really good job of teaching her to be a good person. Now, the bad guy in Hero Unit, I'll admit, is kind of bland. My very first villain, she's not super inspired, and I kind of wish I would have done it differently, but that's life. However, over here in Book 2, so spoilers for Book 2 and kind of the rest of the Hero Unit series, we have the exceptional known as Cult. Now, this woman is also an exceptional with the Used quirk. Now, her basic powers are life class powers. And life class means that she's sort of like a super doctor. And most people with the used quirk that aren't certain classifications, uh, it's not viewed as a problem because people with used and certain power sets generally handle it well. Life class are considered one of those classifications that if you have the used quirk, you're going to be fine. We'll give you a little bit of extra support, but otherwise we're not gonna worry too much about you. And that would have been fine, except Kendall didn't handle some experiences in her life well. One of which being the time that she and Ace she was assigned to Ace's unit to assist in a counterterrorism operation for another country when Ace was in the military. Don't really go into a lot of details on Ace's time in the military. Lots of it is through PTSD flashbacks and nightmares that she has. So another one of those ways that I give Ace conflict and have her struggle is she has to deal with that. But Kendall became obsessed with Ace after this brief time serving together. And this obsession slowly drove her over the edge. And a lot of people that encounter her through the series think that it was her used power that did it, because that's often the case. And that's the assumption that everybody runs off of. That's not actually the case. That's what I have everybody assume. I know differently. Kendall obsessed over Ace to the point that her obsession became dangerous, and she eventually starts acting out and kidnapping people and torturing them, and so in the cases of any men that she captures, she kills them. And she uses her powers for pure evil. And that's one of the things that I want my readers. So my first villain was mentally unwell, but not criminally insane. My second villain is Cult, and Cult is evil. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I have made her to be evil. She has allowed herself to go down a path that is objectively wrong, and she knows it, and she doesn't care. Other villains in the series, there are some that are a little bit grayer, I guess, but I'm not a big fan of morally gray villains or morally gray heroes. Even I prefer to write heroes and villains that have weaknesses, that have their flaws. There we go. Because those are interesting characters. But the idea that all villains are just misunderstood, or all heroes are one step away from being a bad guy, it's just boring to me, because I know where you're going to go with that kind of story. And to me, to have a villain that is genuinely evil, genuinely out to do what they want, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want, and they don't care about the consequences to other people as long as they have their needs met, that's something else entirely. Those are more interesting characters, because you can have them do things that on the outside appear good or not self-serving, but they're always serving themselves. They're always using these interactions to serve themselves. And that's Cult. Everything she does is to serve her own desires. And she's a truly unpleasant character to write. I have a couple of POV scenes from her in the later series, and it's just not a pleasant experience to have to put myself into that headspace of someone that just doesn't care. wants what she wants, and she's going to do whatever it takes to get it. So when you're writing your protagonist, like I've talked about Ace, she's my protagonist. I know her powers, but how do I constrain her, and how do I make her interesting with how powerful she is? And then you have Colt, an antagonist, who is purely evil, but what do I do with her to make what she does interesting beyond, well, she's evil, mustache twirling bad guy. You want to avoid flat characters is basically what I'm trying to tell you. And people will make mistakes. I have Ace make mistakes all the time. Well, not all the time, but Ace makes mistakes. And the mistakes, when she makes them, have repercussions that are quite a bit bigger because, well, she's super powerful. And then I have my bad guys do things that appear benevolent, but in the long run really aren't. And so that helps to maintain this idea that they aren't these one-dimensional, superhero, supervillain, good guy, bad guy kind of idea. So when you're creating your hero, what are their flaws? What makes them, what's a blind spot that they have? And when you're making your bad guys, why do people follow them? Why do people work with them? Why do people listen to them? How are they getting followers? How are they doing what they do? Why are they doing what they do? And you have to remember, like people like to say, and I've heard it said several times, is that the villain is a hero of their own story. So you need to justify to themselves their actions. Their actions need to make sense to them and for what they're going for. All right, looks like we're getting close to time. I don't want to make this too long, so that's just a little taste of ideas on building heroes and villains based off of my own characters, my own works. When you are writing, make sure that you're understanding your villains' motivations, your heroes' motivations, their flaws, their weaknesses, what makes them good, what makes them bad. For both characters. So that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for stopping by. Again, you can find my books at jcbybee.com. You can also follow me on socials and on Patreon. Please go check it out. You can get an exclusive story there and help me buy a chair that doesn't do that. And you can also listen to me on the Third Person POV podcast here on YouTube and other platforms, where myself and my fellow writers talk about writing and critiquing and trying to make each other better writers. So, I appreciate you stopping by. If you enjoyed what you heard, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. And I will see you in the next one.